2014, establishing Chapter 9.32 of the Laramie Municipal Code entitled Illegal Discrimination. Third and final reading. Number 2, consideration of cancellation of City Council work session May 14, 2015 at 6 p.m. Number 3, adjournment.
Thank you. And would you do roll call, please?
Hanson.
Here.
Henry.
Here.
Shumway.
Here.
Schuster.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Vitale.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Pelikas.
Here.
9 present, Your Honor.
Thank you. Before we introduce the first item, I just want to go over just a couple of things. There may be some people in the audience that haven't been here prior to tonight. We do have a limit. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak. You will not only have an opportunity to speak during the main motion, but if in fact there were any amendments being made, you would also have an opportunity to speak at that time also. We do ask you to keep your comments to within 5 minutes, and frankly, it's gone very well over the last first reading and second reading, but it's really important that you keep your comments precise, you don't repeat yourself, and you do stay within that 5-minute time frame. I also want to remind council a couple of things. First of all, this is third reading. It is unusual to have amendments on third reading, and the reason why is because we have no time for staff to be able to review those amendments prior to them becoming part of the ordinance. So if we do have any amendments that pass tonight, it would be strongly suggested, and I think council would back me up on this, that we postpone the third reading and allow time for council to be able to, our legal counsel, to be able to review those amendments to make sure there's no ramifications that we haven't considered. The last item I want to mention is we do have a 3-minute time limit for counselors. That's per round. You can speak on multiple rounds, and of course, there's always an opportunity to suspend the rules if you so chose to do so. Okay? Councilor Vitale.
Yeah, I'd like to bring up at the last meeting, we did move to suspend the rules for this particular item.
I believe the motion was to suspend rules for that meeting, not for the
It
item.
was for this particular item. But if we need, I'd like to make another motion that we suspend the rules for this evening.
Okay,
If-
concerning our time limit.
Yes,
Okay,
I have a presentation that may take 5 minutes. And I would like to just make it once rather than in 2 separate.
would you like to make a motion that we suspend the rules to allow you?
Not for me, just to suspend the rules for this evening would be the cleanest way to do it.
Okay.
Other counselors have concerns or whatever, then they would also have equal opportunity.
Thank you. Is there a second on that motion? There's a second on that motion. Any discussion on suspending the rules? This is a 2/3 vote. It requires 6 counselors to vote in the affirmative. City Clerk, would you do roll call, please?
Vitale.
Yes?
Weaver.
No.
Somerville.
No.
Henry.
No.
Shumway.
Yes.
Hanson.
No.
Schuster.
Yes.
Pierce.
No.
Pelikas.
No.
6 noes, 3 yeses, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion fails. Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to yield Councilor Vitale 2 minutes of my time so that he has the 5 minutes to make his presentation as we get into the course of discussion. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
City Attorney, is that allowable under our rules?
Good evening, Mayor. I think it would be, that would be proper during, when the issue comes up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
All right. Item number 1, Vice Mayor.
I move to approve original ordinance number 1914 entitled Illegal Discrimination on third and final reading and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign. Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. or discussion?
Discussion.
Almost went the wrong way on that. Is there any, before we start, is there any further information from the city attorneys on this subject?
We have been provided no proposed amendments, so it sits as it sits, and we're ready to proceed.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Henry?
Okay, I've received many letters and emails regarding religious exemption from this city ordinance. I want to make it clear to everyone in this room and our city residents that this ordinance does not violate anyone's religious freedom. A religious exemption was brought forward and considered at second reading on April 20th, and it was voted down. An amendment was made to include that this ordinance fully acknowledges all rights guaranteed by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. That amendment passed and is included in Section 9.32.070. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution guarantees freedom of religion for all U.S. citizens. To argue against this ordinance in the name of religion is not necessary tonight. A definition of the word discriminate is to make an unjust or prejudicial distinction in the treatment of different categories of people or things. It is my personal opinion that to use religion as a mechanism for discrimination against anyone is wrong. Laramie has a reputation for discriminating against the gay community. Whether that is correct or incorrect, it is still a reputation. Let's right that wrong. This city needs to abolish our former reputation by enacting this ordinance that prohibits discrimination against persons based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. This is the 21st century, and just like our founding fathers proudly declared in the 18th century Declaration of Independence, all people are created equal and have rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Wow, I don't know if I can follow that. Anyway, I guess I just want to say it has been my honor and privilege to participate in this. And I'm sorry. I just want to thank everybody who has been patient and has participated. The other thing I'd like to say is that we want a city that is inclusive and welcoming. And clearly, this is a social issue with economic ramifications. And so, that's it.
Thank you very much. Counselor Schuster?
Okay. I was the one that made the motion for the religious exemption that was voted down 7-2. Since then, I have met with several people. I've met with a minister that's already had a request at his church, even though the people were not members of his church, to be married there, a gay couple. And they said, just wait till the ordinance passes. And so then I went and met with attorneys, and I said, what can happen in this? And they said, well, everybody deciphers the United States Constitution different. I've seen it be deciphered different in freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the Second Amendment in gun rights. And they told me, the attorneys told me, that there is a possibility that you could find a prosecuting attorney that would be willing to take the case and try to prosecute the church. They told me there is a chance that there would be a judge that would take the court and try the case. So everybody deciphers it different. So at this time, I will not support this ordinance without the religious exemption. Because I've met with enough people and I've seen what's happened in other communities, that a baker that refused to do something received a $135,000 penalty for that. So to say that we have freedom of religion is not true. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Vitale.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilman Weaver. I will try and get through this as expedient and clearly as possible, but I think those of you that are present just witnessed a form of discrimination that has nothing to do with gender or sexual orientation, and a counselor not being allowed to represent his constituency. But anyway, I'm going to read the other part of the story that hasn't been told on this whole issue. And this is coming from a group called Alliance Defending Freedom. It's a nonprofit legal organization that advocates for life, religious liberty, and marriage in the family. This was introduced to the state legislature when they were considering Senate File 0115, which was an act relating to discrimination. The proposed legislation to include the categories of sexual orientation and gender identity in the state's non-discrimination laws will threaten First Amendment freedoms and expose the state to legal and fiscal liability. Adding gender equity and sexual orientation to this, without adding that will violate the Establishment Clause as well as the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. Ordinance 1914 will require all public businesses, churches, and religious organizations to make each bathroom open to both sexes. It will also require public swimming pools and fitness clubs to make their shower rooms and locker rooms open to both biological sexes. This will violate the privacy of especially women and girls and place their safety at risk. This ordinance contains no religious conscience exemption from the Public Accommodations Non-Discrimination Law. This treats people of faith as second-class citizens. This ordinance will dictate who churches and religious organizations must accept as members in violation of the First Amendment. Wyoming's Public Accommodation Non-Discrimination Law arguably applies to churches and religious organizations. And there's a whole page here of cases to back that up. Government is constitutionally forbidden to meddle in the affairs of religious organizations. The Constitution does not permit the government to dictate to churches and religious organizations who they must accept as members. As the Supreme Court said, quote, "The Constitution's authors sought to protect religious worship from the pervasive power of government." And there's a whole bunch of case laws listed on that. This ordinance will require all public businesses, churches, and religious organizations to make each bathroom open to both sexes. So adding gender identity to that, and I just mentioned this previously, all the conditions with all public accommodations. Requiring public places to effectively make their bathrooms, shower rooms, and locker rooms gender neutral has a potential to lead to a number of unintentional and undesirable consequences. This ordinance may violate the constitutional privacy interest of citizens who will be forced to share a restroom, shower room, or locker room with a person of the opposite biological sex. In addition, laws allowing biological males to use facilities designated for women may be used by heterosexual sexual predators to gain easier access to women, teens, and girls. Sadly, this has happened in other communities that have enacted prohibiting discrimination on the basis of gender identity. And there are a number of cases and references to the situations there. This ordinance will infringe constitutional and statutory rights by requiring people to participate in events or produce messages with which they disagree. The vast majority of businesses, including those owned by people of faith, already happily serve all customers including those who identify as gay, lesbian, and transgender. Indeed, our research was unable to identify a substantiated or even alleged pattern of sexual orientation or gender identity discrimination in Wyoming. Now, the other night, we were given an annual report, bias crime report, presented to us by our chief of police. And this has been done since the year 2000. In accordance with the City of Laramie Ordinance 9.08.020, bias crime reporting, I am submitting this memo as a statistical report of all bias crimes committed within the City of Laramie during 2014. During that period of time, the Laramie Police Department investigated no bias-related crimes. The Laramie Police Department uses standards mandated by the Uniform Crime Reporting Section of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Training is done for all employees of the department on an annual basis, and members of the LARC Division Records Unit are trained in the UCR reporting. Policy is in place within the department that guides the investigative process as it relates to bias crime investigations and reporting. Our internal process is to apply a tiered review of all crimes in which bias is a potential motivating factor. Bias in Webster's dictionary is prejudice toward a social group, simply speaking. The department does not see any single kind of bias crime as becoming prevalent in Laramie, nor is there any indication that bias crimes are underreported at this time due to a social or political culture that would hinder openness with any protected class of citizens within our community. Similarly, some business owners are unable to create messages that are contrary to what their faith teaches them is correct, because neither current statutes nor the ordinance provides an exemption to protect rights of conscience. An enactment of this ordinance will result in discrimination complaints filed against business owners who are simply trying to run their business consistent with their faith. And again, there's a page and a half of examples throughout the country to support that. Those things simply do not happen. Rather, the lawsuits all involve plaintiffs who use statutes like the ordinance to demand that others participate in or promote same-sex ceremonies or support or convey messages that conflicts with someone's faith. In other words, they all involve freedom of conscience issues. Finally, each of these lawsuits have come about because sexual orientation and gender identity were added to the non-discrimination law. Such additions, without robust freedom of conscience protection, can lead to the trampling of religious liberty and free speech. This ordinance has no protection. This may render it unconstitutional under the Wyoming Constitution, which provides, quote, the free exercise and enjoyment of religious profession and worship without discrimination or preferences shall be forever guaranteed in this state. That's the Wyoming Constitution, and it has some of the legal little icons in there, as well as the First Amendment. Also, this discriminates against child care providers owned by people of faith. So in conclusion, this ordinance raises many constitutional concerns. It is our opinion that it will have many adverse consequences, including trampling of the freedom of speech and religion guaranteed by the First Amendment. Now, the governor of this state sent 12 representatives to Washington 2 weeks ago to argue with the United States Supreme Court about the state's rights to determine same-sex marriages and those issues. The Supreme Court will be making a decision next month. There were others there also petitioning. Also, the state legislature in January and February mulled over this issue. There's a collection of some of our finest legal and political minds in the state, meet every year for 2 months in Cheyenne to determine the laws of this state and other conduct and situations that keep Wyoming an equality state and a place where we all love to live. Now, having said all of this,
Counselor Vitale,
I'm concluding.
Thank you.
Final, yeah.
In
I
10
sure
minutes.
don't want, yeah, I don't want to keep you guys here too late. I move to postpone until March 22nd, 2015, a decision on this ordinance.
You said March 22nd. I think you meant something
No,
different.
I mean March, it's the 4th of Tuesday in 2016. I'm sorry. Now, that will give our state legislature, it'll give the Supreme Court time to make a decision, our state legislatures to contemplate it and come up with a state law that within the state, we all will be governing on an equal basis
so your motion is to postpone until?
until March 22nd, 2016.
Thank you. Is there a second for that motion?
I will second it. I don't think it stands a chance, but I will second it.
it doesn't stand a chance, but.
There's a second on the motion. Any discussion from council on the motion to postpone?
Your Honor, we heard it right, 2016.
You did.
Yes, sir.
Any comments from the public on the postponement? City Clerk, would you do roll call, please?
Vitale,
Yeah.
Shumway,
No.
Hanson,
No.
Somerville,
No.
Weaver,
No.
Pierce,
No.
Schuster,
Yes.
Henry,
No.
Polikis.
No,
2 yeses, 7 noes, Your Honor.
that motion fails. All right, back to the main motion. Any further comments by council? Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep it quick. I think I'll have a minute. I also wanted to point out, Mr. Mayor, some of the actions of the legislature. I think one of the things that's continuously lost in this discussion is the fact that the Wyoming Senate, which is a very conservative body, full of very conservative membership, many of whom have been there for a long time, voted to pass a LGBTQ non-discrimination measure. 24 votes it received. One of the members there, Senator Hank Coe, made some, I think, very good brief statements about it. You know, he said, times change, it's 2015, and we need to step up and do what we have to do. Discrimination in the workplace is just wrong, absolutely wrong. Well, our ordinance, in the limited way that the city of Laramie is able to address it, does try to address that issue. Now, with regard to the religious exemption, the religious freedoms, I also appreciated this comment from Senator Coe. He said, the canned email I got said this bill was a violation of religious conscience. This bill solves issues of conscience and fairness. And this is what is fair to me, and it's time for the equality state. Well, you know, we don't speak for the state. The city council membership up here only votes on things that we believe to be within the jurisdiction of city government in Laramie. And I think it's an appropriate measure. I'm happy to vote with the majority of the Wyoming Senate on this type of issue and try to take a page from their book and push this community and this state a little further in the right direction. And I'm very pleased to do that. And then just quickly, Mayor, what I'd like to do is to thank the tireless efforts from the citizens that have engaged in this process, because that's what really counts. That's what really gets things done, at least at the city level and in the local government, state government. It's engaged citizens that spend their time organizing and speaking to their elected representatives to advocate for the views that they want represented in government. So I thank you very much for your efforts. I support this measure completely, and I'll be voting yes for it. And thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Somerville?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to start out with saying what a wonderful day to be in Laramie. I haven't said much in the prior readings of this ordinance because I haven't had to. The community support that has carried this forward has been absolutely tremendous. I do want to say that it is so important for Laramie to be a place that's welcoming to all. We have the honor of being host to several key educational institutions, including the University of Wyoming, and because of that, we are a community that spearheads innovation. We shape the minds of the next generation, And I think because of that, we have not only a duty to the citizens that are here now, but we have a duty to our future generations that will come to Laramie and that will educate themselves. The people that live here, the people that work here, Laramie is just home to such a diverse group. I can't say it enough, immensely proud to be on the council at this point in time and be able to vote in support of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from council before I open it up to the public? Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Your Honor. I am also in support of this ordinance. I believe that the First Amendment of the Constitution absolutely protects all of our religious rights, and I think if we were to pass a blanket religious exemption, that would open up abuse of our constitutional rights. For example, if we had a large population of individuals that believed in Sharia law, that would be open for them to practice that. I support this ordinance as it's before us. I think it's very inclusive. I think it's a ordinance that has been well thought out, and I hope that we are sending a very positive message to our citizens.
Thank you. Councilor Hanson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Regarding the religious exemption, the Supreme Court, of course, has ruled on many occasions because there have been challenges. To my way of thinking, there's one sentence in one of the court decisions that speaks to the issue, and I'll read the sentence as I find it. While the right to have religious beliefs is absolute, please listen, absolute, the freedom to act on such beliefs is not absolute. And I think that circumscribes the situation quite clearly. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'll just say a few words. To me, this is about treating people fairly. It's about treating people the way I would want to be treated, the way we all expect to be treated, and it's nothing more than that, in my mind. Discrimination, I guess it has a different viewpoint on a lot of different people, but for me, discrimination is something that we should not tolerate in our community. If we want to be a progressive community and we want to see economic development and we want to attract high-tech firms, they're going to look at how we view our citizens and how we treat our citizens. And to me, and by the way, this is not something that Laramie just all of a sudden invented and decided to do. It's my understanding it's being done all over the country in many, many communities all over the country. It's also my understanding that many states are adopting some sort of a law to help with this. So all we're doing is looking at things and saying, yes, it makes sense to treat people fairly, and yes, it makes sense to make a statement to the rest of the country, the rest of the world, the rest of the state, that we do intend to treat people fairly, and we do intend to be one of our leaders within our state. So it's that simple to me. The religious part of it, we made an amendment, just as been stated, to allow or to reaffirm the fact there is a separation between church and state, and we do not want to violate that separation, and that's why we made the amendment, and I'm very comfortable with that. So that's all I have to say. I would at this time welcome any members of the public if they'd like to speak. Please come forward.
Thank you.
And there will be an opportunity for, don't worry, if you don't get identified right away, there'll be an opportunity for everyone that wants to speak to be able to speak.
Thank you very much. My name is Paul Cortez. I am a native of Laramie. I want to thank the mayor and the council for having this extremely good conversation with all the things that you noted just now. I would say that I'm hopeful that this will be a unanimous vote to make sure that the council and the city of Laramie and the citizens that you represent will unanimously vote to protect the rights of all people, irregardless of religion, faith, sexuality, or gender identity, or age, or anything like that. Right now in California, people are getting signatures to kill people like me, based upon that was something in a religious text, that is the way to go. I hope that the city will put forward a message, as you said, Mr. Mayor, to the world. We don't do that in this town. We don't do that. It's already happened throughout history in various countries and for various faiths and for various reasons and for various races or for women or for anything. We don't do that in this town. And I know that you sitting here will look behind you and you say we're building our community through respect, integrity, teamwork, and stewardship. And I do believe that as elected officials that you will look at that, hear it, see it, manage it, and represent it for our city. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Hale? Oh, Helen, go.
Good evening. I wish to preface my prepared statement.
Could I ask you, and this goes for everyone, if you would identify yourself for the
I'm
record
sorry.
before you speak?
Surely. My name is Helen Butler. I'm a resident of Laramie and a voter in Laramie and the state of Wyoming. I wish to preface my prepared statement by saying, let us continually be mindful of the fact that human life is to be honored, treasured, and supported by individuals and governing bodies with care. Mindful always of the words written many years ago by a renowned philosopher, John Stuart Mills. He wrote, regarding our actions, our decisions, to be guided by the principle inherent in the words, and I quote, the greatest good for the greatest number. This is my statement, and I have a copy for inclusion in the record of this meeting. I do appreciate this opportunity to speak regarding the agenda item. I submit a copy of these remarks for inclusion in the formal final report pertaining to this evening's meeting. I am a legal resident of Laramie. This is where I live. This is where I vote. I've served on various nonprofit organizations as a volunteer and/or a board member. Prior to moving here, my professional experience covers several decades in Boston, New York City, and Algonquin, Maine. In Wyoming, truly, the equality is Wyoming truly the equality state. It must be. It's what our citizens deserve and are entitled to. Else, we're limited to being a paper slogan only. I am of an age to have been directly impacted by and witness to many of the major human, social, political, and economic challenges within this nation and this community. My credentials include 10 years with the New York State Division of Human Rights. In 1952, it became the first state in the Union to enact legislation relative to discrimination. Then and now, the scope of that body of law is the most comprehensive human rights laws of any state in this land, containing greater scope and enforcement protections for citizens than even the federal EEOC. The issue now before the Laramie City Council specifically addresses a few basic elements relative to reality. Equality in areas of workplace, housing, business practices are all valid fundamental rights. Our community has the challenge and a fair and equitable right to breathe healthy life for each and all by taking affirmative action. This is an opportunity for Laramie to lead. I urge the Laramie City Council to approve this pending motion as a significant stepping stone, benefiting today, tomorrow, and forward into the future. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Hale.
Good evening. My name's Tim Hale. It seems this council with this ordinance is trying to address a problem that doesn't exist. And if there is a problem, then are we suggesting that there's a problem with our police department and their reporting? You can't have it both ways. I'd like to talk a little bit about discrimination, discretion, and preferential groups. I witnessed in this, what would I call a courtroom, municipal court, the municipal court judge chastising a Chinese student who was getting his PhD in engineering. He was an earthquake specialist, and he didn't understand the legal form that was presented to him as a defendant in the courtroom. And he was reluctant to sign it because he didn't understand it. And he was essentially forced to sign it. And at the time, when I witnessed this, then I went directly after the court, and I had a little visit with the then city attorney. And I told him, I'm going to make this the biggest deal you ever saw. And mysteriously, the case was dismissed. But it's the mere fact that you've got a certain segment of people that either have a language problem, they're Chinese, whatever it may be. And I'm not certain that this ordinance will address that. I have no confidence that it will. So we're talking about something that this city is very capable of doing. They should have done a long time ago. And yet, a member of the court, the judge, imposes this. And I'm not certain that the judge at that time would take to heart this ordinance if it was passed, if it was effective at that point. Then, when you talk about discrimination in certain groups, when there's a little catch-all discretionary decisions that are made, and I asked at the last time I spoke, is it discrimination or is it discretion? And can you have discretion without discrimination? When, let's say, city employees get a special deal out at the rec center and the rest of us have to pay full price. What is that? It doesn't feel like I'm being treated like everybody else. How many people sitting behind me get a discount to go to the rec center? We all pay taxes. Assumingly, we all pay an equal proportion of our tax money, and yet only a certain people get the discount. And I think that's been shown that what we have is a city council that is very partial to city staff. And the answer here is not isolating a special group and giving them special treatment. It's level the playing field. And once you level the playing field, then you don't have these sort of problems. I recall at a city council meeting the city attorney stated something to the effect, and this was long before your time, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So let's just say we've got 2% of the population that has some sort of problem. Funny how that equation doesn't work in this case. So you can pick and choose what agenda you want. And then when you take preferential groups, I think that's inherently asking for trouble. Take a group of people who can, right here in Laramie, hog tie a guy to the point where his diaphragm shuts down and you kill him. No criminal charges. Take a group of people that can discharge a firearm at Copper's Corner in the bathroom, no criminal charges. Take a group of people that can shoot the windshield out from the inside of a vehicle right next door, no criminal charges. Take a group of people that can leave their loaded pistol in a public bathroom, no criminal charges. Who is this group? It's our Laramie Police Department. And what are we going to do about it? I brought these things up numerous times, and it fell on deaf ears. And I find some of the statements that I've heard tonight by the council very hypocritical. I'd like to draw attention.
Mr. Hale, you need to wrap it up.
You know, I don't believe I've ever come to a meeting that you didn't interrupt me.
Well, there's a reason for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because you don't like me. Yeah, that's the reason. And we all know it. Everybody here knows it. I'd like to draw attention, and then I'm concluding, at the July 1st, 2014 meeting. And here's our mayor when he doesn't realize the microphone is turned off. Quote, "Where do these little nuts come from?" This was done in Councilor Somerville's presence, and I'm not aware that she did anything about it. Then we have Shumway, who says, "This is terrible. Can't run a business meeting and take them every which way."
Councilor Henry?
Point of order, this is not, it's off topic, and you have exceeded your 5-minute limit.
5 limits, okay.
Mr. Hale?
Yeah.
I asked you to wrap it up, and you...
I am wrapping it up.
No, you're not. You've gone to another
Yeah,
topic.
well, I think I've touched a nerve. You say, "She's a nut." How many people are you going to refer to sitting behind me when the microphone's turned off as a nut?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Diley, and I'm speaking here again on the issue of the discrimination ordinance. And to reiterate, I shared it before, so I won't go into the detail, but that I had tried to utilize the ordinance back in 1993 in Tucson, Arizona. And because I was a low-income worker, it didn't pan out, and the city did not back me up, even though it was very clear that I was experiencing discrimination due to sexual orientation in the workplace. So my point is that, you know, that even if it is passed, I just want the public to be aware that, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to back them up, you know, if they're going to try to rely on it, particularly if they're low income. And my other point is that as far as the religious, I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. I lived there for 18 years, and presently this issue is, you know, I'm really surprised Laramie has got such support for this, because Anchorage are fighting it vociferously. They've got someone up there called Jerry Prevost of the Anchorage Baptist Temple, and they are politically organized, you know, to stop these sexual discrimination ordinance. And when I was up in Anchorage, I tried to, and this is controversial for me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyhow, because it happened to me, and I have to suffer the consequences. I tried to integrate Alcoholics Anonymous, or desegregate it, because within AA they have what's called a special interest group for gays and lesbians. And my point was that it's not a special interest, that gay or lesbian or bisexual should be able to share freely in any of the AA meetings and not have to just be safe in a special, you know, quote-unquote special interest group. I was attacked in the AA meetings for trying to be openly gay in the meetings. And the ridicule, the hatred, the shaming, everything that occurred to me, it got back to my family. It hurt me so badly that I just thought, forget it. I'm bisexual, I'll just go with my heterosexuality. I'll call that God's will for me. So because of what they did to me in the AA meetings, I just figured I can't handle this. The hatred that's coming towards me is just, it's too much. I can't handle this. So I had to completely back off trying to be honest on the issue. And I couldn't be open about it. And it was extremely difficult. And there was a woman at the time in the meetings trying to do the same thing. And I remember looking at her and thinking, we're both two very unloved people. We're hard to love people, she and I. And I'd even call myself a bona fide undesirable, for reasons I won't go into, but it's true. I've not been a very easy person to love. And that hatred was just devastating to me. And I looked at her and I thought, she's doing the same thing. She's trying to be open about being a lesbian, and they're treating her so badly that I can see the harm it's causing to her soul. What it's doing to her as an individual, how devastating it is to her. And the psychological problems it was causing to her, it was almost identical as me. And I'm like, we're the last people that should be trying to stand up, because we're the ones that are lacking love in our lives, and here we are trying to stand up, making ourselves targets of all this hatred. So I just thought, I've still continued attending a Christian, or continued considering myself a Christian, and this is what I found out, and I'll try and keep this under. I will keep this in 5 minutes. But it took me. I'm 50 years old now. It took me this long to learn in this just recently that the Bible says in Leviticus 21:9, and the daughter of any priest, if she profane herself by playing the whore, she profaneth her father, she shall be burnt to death. Hebrews 10:28. If anybody wonders about Guantanamo Bay and why torture, or about the issue of torture, and as to why Christian conservatives support torture, I found out where it is. This is not Old Testament God's wrath. It's in the New Testament. It's Hebrews 10:28. Anyone who has rejected Moses' law dies without mercy on the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, etc., etc. It's affirming that it's within God's will to practice torture. That's the New Testament. So when we're talking about religious freedom, we don't have that freedom in this country to do those things. So at some point, we took a stand, humanists took a stand, and they said, no more. You're not going to call that religious freedom. And thank God that they did, because it's not in the Bible, and like they said, it's in Phoenix, Arizona. He's citing Leviticus, where it says that homosexuals most certainly shall be put to death. There's a pastor in Phoenix calling for the death of homosexuals, citing the Bible. So my last point here is that, and just very quickly, is as it relates to AA and AA being court-ordered, which I oppose, because it is very clearly religious that's involved. And I just wanted to say that my friend, when I shared during public comment, I pointed out that my friend, Keith Benner, he took his own life. He was with me when he and I were attacked by the grizzly bear up in Alaska, and the bear spray didn't stop the bear. Keith took his own life 10 years after we were attacked by the bear. Keith was studying, he was going to study for his doctorate in theology in Toronto. He was preparing to do that, but he took his own life. And Keith was very religious, and he was a very good person. And I've always hesitated to say this, especially publicly, but I want to say this because it's so important. I have some reason to believe that homosexuality may have been a motive for him to taking his own life. So I went through that bear attack with this person. I have a very strong kinship with him. And from when I read of his taking his own life, it was very, very significant to me. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman just stood up, please come forward.
Yeah, my name is Ron Glazer, and I know a lot of you guys on the council. It's good to see you again. I haven't been down here for a while. I've been kind of busy. But this is one of the most delightful meetings I think I've ever been to. And that's saying a lot. I've been to quite a few of these meetings. I think it's wonderful that this community is having this discussion, and it's good to hear viewpoints on both sides. But I am very proud because I think before the night's over, I'm going to see this council do the right thing and make sure that everybody, no matter how they choose to pursue their happiness, has equal rights in this community. I honestly don't think it's a big problem here. I've lived in Laramie a long time because I'm getting old. But I think for the most part, this community treats most folks fairly, whether it's race or sexual orientation or whatever. But I also think it's important, particularly considering some of our history, and Councilor Henry brought that up, that we make it clear to the outside world who we are and what matters to us as a community, and that everybody has equal rights, irregardless of their private life choices, to participate in our marketplace, participate and contribute to our community. So I just want to say, maybe it's premature, thank you for doing the right thing, because I know you will.
Thank you. Mr. Hall, there we go.
Oh, hey, my name's Rihanna Kelver. I'm an LHS student here, and I am also a student leader of our GSA, as we call it, Sally, Safe Area for Laramie LGBT Youth. I am also a transgender female. I came out about a year ago in January. And living in the community, number one, I would say I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I love Laramie. Laramie is a beautiful community, and we have a great populace of beautiful people. But more importantly, as I commute, I have a job, and as I commute there every day, I have to go through this switching of my, identity as, oh, I'm Ryan, how can I help you, in fear of keeping that job. And so this ordinance strikes very close to me, as I live with my single mother in our little 2-bedroom apartment, and as we struggle to keep it every month, and that if I could successfully work happily as myself and also help provide for my family and also my friends and my community as my true identity, I can't really state the importance of this ordinance and the passing of it. And so as the person before me said, I know you guys will do the right thing and secure fair treatment of all in our community. So I thank you, and yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Holt?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor, both, I guess. I'd like to reiterate some of the comments that I made at the last meeting. First of all, with the title and style of this, anti, ordinary, illegal, it's got three. The latest, I think, is a misspelling of anti, A-N-I-T. I'm not sure what the true name of this is, but I would think that would violate some of your definitions on style, where you can't have more than one subject. Additionally, as I went through before, I think this is constitutionally vague. It's overbroad. Of the Wyoming Constitution, it violates of Article 1, Sections 2 and 3, Section 18, Article 6, Section 1, Article 21, 25. Parts of it are ex post facto, making something a crime after the fact. I remind the council you have no civil jurisdiction, none. You turn this into a criminal offense. Additionally, I think this will have an effect on perhaps property values in Laramie. Another major point is the ordinance, as I've seen published, does not have the signature of the city attorney. I didn't see it last time, I don't see it this time. There's a signature on there, I don't believe it's by anyone who's licensed to practice law, which brings another problem with this, the unauthorized practice of law, which there's been a tremendous amount of change in Wyoming. I think that's something that you really need to look at. You're placing the city manager, their assistant, and investigator in perhaps very precarious positions in trying to carry this out. So I question the validity of this if it doesn't have this signed off by the city attorney on any of these readings, how you can proceed. I printed off the blackmail statute because I'm worried that part of this may perhaps trigger some of the problems in our statutes where it submits someone to potentially being charged with blackmail. That's how serious I think this is. So I'm not approaching it as most people here this evening. I'm approaching it from a legal perspective. I think it needs to be thoroughly researched. And I question again, I think the council needs to back off on this, because making a decision when you're changing legal firms or lawyers, I don't think is like it's changing horses in the middle of the stream, which is not perhaps the way to go. In any event, I think you really need to reconsider this before you take an action that you may regret. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Lorinda Lindley. I am a resident of Ward 1, and I rise in support of Original Ordinance 1914. I just want to speak briefly. My maternal grandfather came to Laramie in 1911. My mother was born here. My grandfather served as the chair of the county commission from 1920 to 1926. My brother served as a firefighter for 25 years, and I have various other family members who have been here continuously. So while I do have 2 degrees from the University of Wyoming, I identify as a local. And I want to offer kudos to all of you for your hard work, and particularly since I am in support of this ordinance as it stands with no amendments, I am very, very proud of those of you who have supported it as it stands. I wanted to speak closely after Rihanna did, because one of my greatest concerns with the passage of this ordinance has been the future of our community and being able to keep our young people here. Because if we do not have protections of their civil rights, they are going to go other places where it's possible for them to have a job and not worry about whether people are going to fire them on the basis of their identity rather than their performance in work. I've heard several people say that we need to pass this because it's the right thing to do, and I totally agree with that. But I also want to tell you thank you very much for your vote earlier, because I strongly believe that this is the right time to pass this ordinance and make it a part of our law in Laramie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Travis DeVille. I've lived in Laramie for about 2 years, and most of my time, my experience was pleasant. The first job I got here started off well until I openly came out as a gay man. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. So one of the incidents that happened while I was working was they called me in early to work, and I said, I can't, I have a date with my partner. The next day I come in to a lot of the other people saying, I can't believe they said that about you, and I'm like, what? I was completely oblivious. one of the nurses that I was working at said, sorry, he can't come in to help us tomorrow because he's gonna be too butthurt to walk. And I brought it up to the proper channels and nothing was done and my hours were cut to 13 hours a month. So I actually had to leave the job in order to pay my rent and stuff like that. Just another thing I'd like to bring up is that one of my partner's really good friend is afraid to actually visit Laramie. She's a trans woman, and she's afraid that she would actually get ran out of town. So I believe in passing this bill, it would definitely improve economics. It definitely improve the reputation of Laramie, and I really hope you guys do vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. You did a nice job too, by the way. Would anyone, I saw, yes.
I'm Mike Selmer. I'm a resident of Imperial Heights in District 3. Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, as a Christian carpenter, whether I live in Laramie or Nazareth, I commit no sin by building a wedding canopy for a same-sex wedding. As a Christian, I commit no sin by baking a cake for a same-sex marriage. Although it might be a sin how bad the cake tasted. As a Christian, I commit no sin by serving a meal to a gay or lesbian couple celebrating their engagement, marriage, or any other event. As a Christian, I do sin when I fail to follow the loving and compassionate example of Jesus Christ, who, according to John 8, verses 1 through 11, rebuked a crowd of religious people when they wanted to enforce Old Testament scripture and stoned to death the adulterous woman. He did more than serve her. He saved her life. I believe that a vote against this ordinance is the same as throwing that first stone. It would serve Laramie well if this ordinance passed unanimously. Please do not use the dubious reason of religion to oppose this measure. Please do the Christian thing and vote yes on Ordinance 1915. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bern Haggerty. I live at 2068 North 16th Street. And I'll try not to repeat things I've said before because I've spoken before. First, don't let anyone tell you that this ordinance is unnecessary. You've heard testimonials from your own constituents. We need this ordinance in Laramie. You can't ignore your constituents. The ordinance addresses necessities. It addresses housing, employment, access to public places, grocery stores, restaurants, food, shelter, necessities. So don't let anyone tell you that it's unnecessary or meaningless or anything like that. We need this ordinance. Second, don't let anyone tell you that the ordinance is unconstitutional or somehow beyond your authority. I assume you have the advice of your own attorneys on this, who must have told you that you have the authority to pass this ordinance. I think you have the authority to do more than is in this ordinance, as I have said before. I submitted a legal memorandum last fall explaining, I think thoroughly researched, if I do say so, explaining how and why you have the authority to pass this ordinance. What the public is probably unaware of is that you also received a letter from an attorney in town named Tim Newcomb last fall. Mr. Newcomb urges you to adopt an equal protection ordinance. He concludes that you have the authority to adopt such an ordinance. And to me, this is significant because Mr. Newcomb wrote the book on constitutional law. Literally, here it is, The Wyoming State Constitution by Kiter and Newcomb. And if Tim Newcomb says you have the authority to pass this ordinance, that it's constitutional, then you're on solid ground. Third, Laramie has a great heritage of promoting equality, and I think this is worth dwelling on. Immediately after women received the right to vote in Wyoming, it was in Laramie that the first women were impaneled as jurors and bailiffs. Wyoming's first woman lawyer was licensed to practice law here in Laramie. In 1914, 101 years ago, Grace Hebert. 15 years ago, almost to the week, you passed the ordinance that Councilman Vitale talked about, the bias crime ordinance. And I'm glad he brought up the bias crime statistics. That was the first ordinance of its kind in the state of Wyoming. And it requires the Laramie Police Department to submit an annual report about hate crime statistics here in Laramie. And I have them, all of them. And there are some years missing. Your police chiefs over the years have fallen down on the job a little bit. I don't know about last year. I don't have last year's report. But in the last 15 years, since our bias crime ordinance was passed, there have been hate crimes here in Laramie based on race, based on religion, and based on sexual orientation. And the reason we know it is because your predecessors were leaders in equality and passed this bias crime ordinance. When you pass this ordinance, you will reinforce Laramie's tradition as an equal rights leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're narrowing it down. Would anyone else like to speak before we close this part of it? Here we go. The gal that, either one. Kathy, we can wait, and why don't we let this gal, and I'll get you up next.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Christina Slagle, and I'm a third-year law student at the University of Wyoming. And the focus of my research these last few years in Laramie has been on transgender law and policy, specifically ordinances such as the one that you're considering tonight. And one of the common concerns that gets raised at town hall meetings is that these ordinances may increase the rate that citizens are in danger of being victims of sexual assault. And my research has found that these concerns are wholly unfounded and in fact may lessen the sexual assault chances, especially in the gender identity community. Currently, there are no laws that prohibit gender individuals from using the bathroom that closely represents their gender identity. In fact, 40% of Americans live in a state that actually affirms the right to use the bathroom of their gender identity. In addition to those 18 states and the District of Columbia, 200 additional city and county jurisdictions have passed ordinance such as this, and my research in all of these areas, and luckily we have many jurisdictions that have gone ahead of us, is that this is an unsubstantiated fear. These laws have been passed for over the past 2 decades. In 1997, Cambridge, Massachusetts was one of the leaders in this area. And in 2014, when a lot of this research was done, Chris Burke, the superintendent of police, found that no incidents of trans protections had been abused in that time. Rhode Island passed protections in 2001, New Mexico in 2003, and Maine in 2005. No incidents reported in those states. Vermont, Oregon, and Iowa passed protections in 2007. Des Moines Police Department spokesman Jason Halito also substantiated the claim that there had been no abuses of transgender protections. In 2011, Nevada passed protections. Las Vegas Police Department spokesman Jesse Roybal also found that there had been no abuses of the statute. Now, there have been some suggestion that this ordinance may prevent violence. Hawaii has had an ordinance since 2006. And the only violence that was reported was against transgender students who were forced to use the bathroom of their birth sex. Colorado has had an ordinance since 2008. Alexa Pretty of the Coalition Against Sexual Assault found that, again, there were no reports of abuse and that the transgender community are far too often targeted for sexual violence, and that these fears are largely unsubstantiated. Again, even with all communities, we're not the best in the transgender community, but many are. However, crimes are still a crime. So this ordinance in no way gives people a defense to commit those crimes while they're in the restroom. They simply allow transgender members to tinkle in peace. So with that, I will leave you in peace. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Representative Connolly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I wasn't going to get up and say anything tonight, but I decided I had to. I am just so proud to be a resident of Laramie and a member of this community. I moved here and I was just thinking about, I think it's 23 years ago, and I came with my then partner and our 6-year-old son as an openly lesbian family. And how much it has meant to us to live here and for this to be my home. You know, I wasn't going to mention being a representative, but I am at the end. But I want to tell you a little bit about my day job. My day job is at the university as a member of the faculty, and that's what I've been doing for the past couple of decades. The university and departments have often asked me, it's like, you know, I'm the out queer, right? They're going to send over people that they're going to try to recruit. And I've been asked over the years to help recruit some of our best and brightest new faculty, and I have been happy to do so. You know, I can pat myself on the back for helping to recruit a $1 million NSF fellow who happens to be gay. And we can be really proud of that. What we can't be proud of is I got a phone call from another department head last month, just last month, regarding a newly recruited faculty member who moved here with his legal husband. He had been married elsewhere, and he was discriminated against at one of our businesses. And in fact, he was told that same-sex marriages weren't recognized in this state. They were illegal. This guy had just moved here with a partner, and he was being denied services at one of our business. That's just wrong. Regrettably, I had to tell that person, you know what, honestly, in this state, it's legal. Right? We don't want that in Laramie. We want to keep that young man here and his partner. We absolutely do. Which gets me to my other job as a representative. While we didn't pass the statewide anti-discrimination measure this past session, know that, as Councilor Weaver said, it passed the Senate and it passed by an enormous margin. In the House, we didn't follow the right lead. But know that in Albany County, 5 of 6 of your senators and representatives not only supported that measure, but actively, vigorously supported that measure. And we will continue to do so. And you know what my hope is from tonight? That we will do so using the leadership of Laramie, using your leadership. You give that to me, and I thank you so much. And I also just want to say, all of the folks behind here, so many of them who have worked so hard and have worked so well at getting this passed, meeting with each of you, talking about the issues that you're concerned about, I want to thank them as well.
Thank you. You know, it's not often in council you get patted on the back, so I saw, there we go.
My name is Monica Chavis, live in West Laramie. I am actually a City of Laramie employee. So as well as you having to follow what's on the wall behind you, I have to follow that as well. My girlfriend and I are raising my 2 daughters. I would like to know that I have the support from my own employer for this ordinance. I also do work for the LARC division in records. So when we talk about the hate crime reporting and so forth, I can say that I have been there. I've been in that position for 9.5 years, and the statistics are statistics. The way it's reported is the way we have to follow it per our reporting agencies, the FBI. So I just want to thank you all for your time and your attention to this matter, and I really do appreciate being able to work for the City of Laramie be able to consider colleagues as yourselves. I do hope that I can continue to keep my position the way that it has been without any reprimanding whatsoever. And I really just want to say thank you for the time, and just thank you, and please, as a fellow person from the city, please know that it would be very much appreciated. I am a homeowner as well. I have been. I have no problems. I don't think my neighbors see my home value going down because of me being who I am. So I just want to say, you know, I am a working individual as everyone else in this community. I strive to pay my bills, to raise my daughters in the most respect that I have been raised in, to treat people like I would like to be treated. And I just hope that everyone can consider this opportunity. And I want to say I am very, very proud to be a City of Laramie employee and the steps that are being made tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, councilors, Mr. Mayor, members of the public, people who wandered in, the media, so forth. This is my third time addressing you in support of this ordinance, and I wanted to mention two things.
Can I ask you to identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jason Clark. I live about 2 blocks from here. I can give you my address. It's 709 Ivinson. And I've lived in Laramie for about 7 years. My dad's from here. He was the valedictorian of Laramie High School class in 1968, played football and was a wrestler and played basketball, so whatever, there's my cred. I'm also a son of the American Revolution. My mom's great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was Samuel Galt. He was an Irish immigrant, and he fought for George Washington, so how about that? I think that it is essential that this ordinance pass. I can't really think of a reason why it should not. I've walked around the last week or so, and people have seen me. Very noticeable because I'm tall and I'm a pretty good dresser. And they, you know, it's different kinds of people who don't always go out and talk to everybody else because they live in what is frequently called in the LGBTQI literature, the closet. They live in the closet. They live in the closet because they're afraid of coming out of the closet. Because they're worried that they might be murdered, or they might be humiliated, or they might be fired, or they might lose their children, or they might be kicked out of their church, or they might have to move. And they've come up to me and they said, you know, I heard you said some good stuff at the city council meeting, and thank you. They thanked me. They thanked me. That was like this morning, a couple times this afternoon. They want to be out of the closet and they want to be free. That's what America is for, as a political entity. That's why we all live here. That's why people come here. They want to be free. They want to be free. And that's what this ordinance is for. Now, I only got a minute or so left, and I'll tell you this story. I used to teach middle school, and I was really nervous. It was the first day of school, and so you have to put on your, like, don't mess with me face. And I was standing and watching all the students come in, and they were coming in, it wasn't here, but they were coming in to the school, and this one young lady, she acted out, and a more senior teacher said, "Girl, you need to get back in line." And she did get back in line, and then the senior teacher leaned over to me and she said, "That girl wanted me to talk to her and recognize her." And I was like, well, that's an odd way to do it. And then I found out about a month later that young girl's mother, the day before school started, the day before her 7th grade school started, had been discovered having a relationship with another woman. And as soon as she was found out, she put a shotgun in her mouth and blew her head off. Now, if that community had been more welcoming to sexual orientation, maybe that little girl would have a mom. And then she wouldn't have acted out. I don't know where that little girl is now. I want to remind you that this ordinance is to protect people regardless of their sexual orientation and gender identity. That is who they are. That's who they are. You can't change who you are. Anyway, have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Please come forward.
My name's Toy Guile, and I actually live with Vern, so that's my address. And I'm just really heartened to see the city council, for the most part, being very open and supportive. And I want to thank everybody who's spoken and the people who have taken risk in speaking. And as a psychologist, I graduated here from the University of Wyoming in 2000. And I needed to leave to get a job, and I was very fortunate and blessed to be able to come back a few years ago. And so I love Laramie, and I love Wyoming, and I love the people of the state of Wyoming. There was a time in this country where I, as a woman, would not have been allowed to vote. There was a time in this country where, men of color were not allowed to vote, and the women of color, along with me, would not have been allowed to vote. And we as a country, we had to, legislate doing the right thing. And when we do the right thing for all of us, we all benefit, because when we discriminate against others, if we're the ones discriminating, we're scarring our souls. And so sometimes we need to be led a bit to do the right thing. And I'm confident tonight you're going to do the right thing, and I want to thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone else? All right. I think we're about ready to go to a vote. I just wanted to say one thing, and the only thing I want to say is I want to thank everyone that's been at these last 3 meetings. You've all been respectful on both sides. And by the way, everyone, including people on both sides of the issue, you've all been respectful. You've all been civil. In my mind, you're a credit to our community, and you set a very good example for our community and the way what we're all about. So thank you all for being who you are. Thank you. City Clerk, would you do roll call, please?
It's on the main motion, Your Honor.
It's on the main motion.
Pierce? Yes. Somerville?
Yes.
Shumway?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Henry?
Yes.
Vitale?
No.
Weaver?
Yes.
Schuster?
No.
Pelikas?
Yes.
2 noes, 7 yeses, Your Honor.
The motion carries.
It doesn't matter.
If you'd bear with us for just about 3 or 4 minutes, we will be able to end this meeting. Next item on the agenda, Vice Mayor.
I move, yeah, it's a motion, right?
It's a motion.
Yeah, okay. I move that we cancel our work session scheduled for May 14th, 2015 at 6 p.m.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Is there anyone
Canceling a meeting?
Anyone from the public wishes to comment on that motion? I think we can do a roll call on this. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? That motion carries. Next item, Councilor Hanson.
Thank you, Your Honor. I mentioned this is my permanent job. I move that council adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second by Councilor Henry. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all. Beautiful.
Yeah, it went good. I wish I went to broke down. Yeah.
He's got to go. Drive safe.
Drive safe, Joe.
Hey, thanks, Joe.
Good night, Joe.
Joe,
We'll see ya.
Well, he had meetings today that he missed. He can stay here, but he has to drive to Salt Lake City right now. He has meetings at 8 a.m. at Salt Lake City.
It's a historical event.
I don't know about that.
Paul, thank you. Thank you, Paul. Good to see you, man.
See, this is not what you signed up for. Everything more,
I don't know if you remember the home we sat next to
Guys.